Welcome back for the final set of full presentations, and we'll get right to it. I'm going to welcome up Bert, Spaan and Jules Schoonman to present Teaching with Allmaps.
Thank you, Caitlin. Hi, everybody. I'm Jules Schoonman. I'm the digital curator at Delft University of Technology Library, and I would like to talk about how we have been using Allmaps in education, and then Bert will take over and show you some of the latest, fanciest stuff. But for those of you who are unfamiliar with Allmaps, what does it do? It takes a IIIF image that you can pan and zoom as you're used to, in this case from the dark arches of the Leeds Central Station, and it turns it into a map that you can equally pan and zoom. And it does this by a process called georeferencing, by annotating the document with some extra information. And we're doing this with open source software, and it leads to open data. So at Delft University of Technology, we started a collaboration for 3 years with the Berlage Center for Advanced Studies in Architecture and Urban Design. And this was great because we could work with people who are interested in the history of certain places and doing archival research, but also people who are making new maps and new documents, so we were interested in how they could be rendered with Allmaps as well. So the Berlage is a 3-year postmaster program, so we were working with already qualified architects. And we were working with them in the first semester. It's an international group of students, and it's a semester called Project NL, and it introduces them to the Netherlands. The course was divided in 3 parts. Part 1 was documentation, and it was aimed at collecting archival documentation of selected sites, and then georeferencing that documentation and analyzing that through annotating it. The second part is called argumentation, and that archival research of the documentation phase was synthesized into new architectural drawings, and they're expressing a certain view, a certain position about the site. The third part was called installation, and basically everything that was generated throughout the course was presented in a physical publication, an exhibition in the faculty, and also digital application. So we made 3 atlases with these groups of students, and each atlas had a different theme. And it started with a physical collection of maps that we also went to see in special collection departments that you can see listed here. And then we also knew that these institutions supported IIIF so that they could work with this material digitally later in the course. So the first river atlas started with a series of river maps, which are quite beautiful, and it started also with georeferencing these maps. It's reversed. Georeferencing these maps collaboratively with the group of students. The second course had as a theme the city of Amsterdam, and this was an important set of maps that you saw loading. These are all different pages of an atlas, and they're rendered all together at once, and this was also done at the beginning of that course. And the first coast atlas dealt with the coastal strip. That is somehow not rendering, that's okay. It is. Stretching from Hoek van Holland to Scheveningen, and looking at, in this case, early 19th century explorations of the dune landscape. So after georeferencing these maps, but obviously more, they also went and loaded those maps in other web-based GIS platforms, in this case Placemark, and we showed how they could do that using Allmaps XYZ proxy server. So this is this documentation and the analytical layers. They were presented in a slideshow like this. You can see that they sort of go across scales, and each slide can have different collection of maps and a different set of annotation, and also an expanded caption that is now collapsed. This is quite nice. This is investigation of the Atlantic Wall, and it goes from a map of the entire Atlantic Wall section in the Netherlands to a plan of an individual bunker. So we're really relating these extreme scales. So all these slides were encoded in a markdown file, for each slide, and it contains some front matter. And we built the application, but the students put in all the data. So they could say where the map should be located. They could add Allmaps layers and add labels to them and some tweaks if they wanted to. They could add additional layers like vector layers and also add a legend. They had some special feature requests, and this was one of the benefits of working closely with groups of students. One was that they found building plans of buildings that no longer existed, so they needed historical reference plans to georeference them. So we made it, so now you can actually load in an already georeferenced map as a reference map in Allmaps editor to make that possible. The other thing is that in each of the courses there was a moment where they actually stopped zooming and panning. They had enough of that and they started printing again because they wanted to work on a fixed scale. And at some point I went in and they actually made a physical collage, and I was a bit surprised. That's the image on the left. And then we worked with them to create a digital collage of that, which was then exported at a certain PPI and scale so that they could print it at scale in a publication. And that kind of inspired us to work on a new module within Allmaps that will allow you to print maps again at scale. So then in the third phase, this was all condensed into publication. You can see on the left an exhibition that also contemplated on the methods that were used, and a digital application. And here are some of the maps that the students created themselves that we then at TU Delft hosted as IIIF images so that they could also georeference those and show them. So this is a fictional map, or they call it a speculative map, so it actually takes the style of the archival map and then has an imaginary landscape of mounds that doesn't exist over there. This was like a speculative history of the site. And here, I have to, oh no, it's rotated correctly. This is a bunker that's actually hidden beneath the landscape, so they map something that you couldn't find on OpenStreetMap, for example. Using these isometric projections to show the sections as well. And then the third example is in Amsterdam, and this is actually a drawing that combines different moments in history in one single view of this neighborhood. So, for example, these blue houses, they no longer exist. They would now be in the middle of the street, so they try to sort of capture all of that in a single image with different moments in history. And also graphically, they used the things that were needed for Allmaps, like you see the lines in the drawing that were used for masking later, and also the little points that were used for georeferencing as control points. So these were the students, and these are some of the links to the atlases. We're planning to, it's already open source, the application, but we're planning to make it more like a template that you can more easily reuse to build your own slideshows. So please follow the Maps channel in the Slack or contact us if you're interested in that. And one of the challenges working with students was to help them discover maps, and this is something that Bert will talk about
now. Hello everybody, my name is Bert Spaan. I'm the lead developer of the Allmaps project. I will tell, this is the reason why I started Allmaps, because I really want there to be an application where you can just find maps of your own house or your current location. And this is the ultimate goal of the project, and it's great, of course, that we can use it in education, but it's just built for that I can find maps of my house. That's the whole purpose. This is where I used to live in Amsterdam, and this map should show where I currently live. I live in this warehouse. And now, of course, we're in Leeds. And there are beautiful maps of the National Library of Scotland at Leeds. So, yeah, that's the goal, to make sure that you can always find maps of wherever you are through Allmaps. And there are millions and millions of maps available through IIIF in institutions around the world. Any institution that publishes their maps through IIIF, you can use those maps and dereference them in Allmaps. More than 50,000 already are dereferenced with Allmaps, and more added every day. This is a screenshot of the Allmaps latest application, which shows the latest maps that people add. And the process is as follows. Jules already told you a little bit about this. It's called dereferencing. So you place points on, and I'm sure most of you already know, you place points on the original scanned IIIF image and then on a map of the world. And by that you're creating pairs of points. So then the computer algorithm knows how to match pixel coordinates with geospatial coordinates. Usually doing this for 3 or 4 points is enough, and then the math will do the rest. And it's able to interpolate the points in between. And by doing that, we can render the IIIF image on top of a geospatial map, like you see here. But this is just one thing you can do with Allmaps. It's all about transforming these coordinates. So transforming pixels to geospatial coordinates and then back. And once you start thinking about it, you see lots of opportunities arise, not just rendering the map on a geospatial map, but doing many more things too. And it's important to know that Allmaps never stores any image data. It only stores the georeference data, so just the pixel and geospatial coordinates. The images always come from IIIF servers. So we don't make derivatives, we don't store derivatives. The images only come from the IIIF servers of the institutions. This is really the core of Allmaps. It's a tiny JavaScript library that allows you to, once you send it the reference data, it allows you to transform pixels to geospatial coordinates and then back. And I can't stress this enough. Allmaps is all about transforming coordinates and nothing else. Maybe you should repeat after me. Allmaps can do more than just displaying digitized maps on top of geospatial maps. So remember this. If there's one thing you remember of my talk, this is it. And I can show you, hopefully. Yeah, so this is a map of Boston. And Boston is a city that changed quite a bit over time. So hopefully you can see my cursor left and right? So you see how I move my cursor on the left on the original IIIF image, and then on the right you can see a map of the world. So you can see how this coordinate transformation is done in real time. Yeah, we can do many things with this. For example, we have built a proxy server for XYZ tiles that turns your reference data and IIIF images into XYZ tile layers that you can use in any GIS application like ArcGIS or QGIS. So those are the tiles generated by this little proxy server. So what this does, it fetches the info.json file and the parts of the IIIF image it needs to just render this single tile. And underneath is the OpenStreetMap tile. So you can see how it works, and you can use this in traditional GIS software. And this is this very XYZ tile layer shown in QGIS. We can do other things too. We can export georeference maps for print. So this is an SVG shown in Illustrator. So it takes the original IIIF image, it warps it so it becomes a geospatial image, and then it transforms it back so it becomes pixels again. And then you can use this to print posters or in your book. Maybe researchers or historians can use this in their publications. Other things you can do, this is an example made by Garrett Nelson from the Boston Public Library. He transformed the geospatial data of the Boston subway network and then transformed it to pixel coordinates and then drawn it on top of this map of Boston. So that's the process the other way around. You can, of course, also, if you have all this geospatial data, ingest it into a geospatial search index, and you can find maps by that location. So in this case, I'm just searching for maps that have some pixels available about the city center of Amsterdam. And the Allmaps database and API has a tool that you can search. So just by inputting locations, you can find the relevant maps. If you combine all these things together, what you get is this application called Allmaps here. You can open it on your phone and it shows you maps around your current location. In this case it's Leeds. And I will give you a live demo soon, maybe right now. Uh-oh. Exactly. Allow. There we are. Right, so it shows you the GPS location, and then you can share the image, and then send it to all your friends. You can also do other things like loading a GeoJSON route and then transforming that to pixels, so you can do a walking route on top of a map of Amsterdam in this case. Just some screenshots of me sharing my location, mostly to Jules. So this is on Slack, so it generates a preview image if you paste the link there. This is WhatsApp. Works on Signal too. Blue Sky even. And you can try it out. And it works wherever there are maps available. And if there aren't any available, then that means that you should just dereference a few. Tomorrow, exactly. You will learn exactly how that works. If you come to our workshop, 1:30, somewhere in this building, I guess. Yeah, here@allmaps.org. I'd love to hear what you think about it. That was it.
Bert and Jules. I'm going to get back on the slides. And then I made the terrible mistake of not listening to how you pronounce first name. So you say it and I say it. That's right.
Yes.
It's not, it's your name. There we go. Okay, this is my fault because I asked everyone to record themselves saying their name so that the people introducing them would be able to say it correctly. And I gave everyone that task and then didn't listen to it before I had to do this. Anyway, we are delighted to welcome Paul Mollahan and Daphne van Wijngaarden to, how was that? Okay, to present a new ecosystem for IIIF-first exhibition building and storytelling.
Yes, thank you. Since we're introduced already, I'll dive straight into it. So what we'll discuss today, first I'll go into the background of why we started the digital exhibition. I'll look into why we chose IIIF and also show you some examples of the exhibition. And then I'll hand over to Paul, who will tell you a bit more about the tools. And then we'll end with the lessons learned and the next steps. So why do we make these digital exhibitions actually? As a university library, we don't have a fixed space where we can present our special collections. But we do want to present them because they're very interesting. So what we did is we created a reusable modular system. As you can see on the screen, we have some images of them. They have characteristic cut corner panels, and you can use them for various things. So as you can see, you can use text, you can use images, but also the objects, of course. We found it important that we did not only create physical exhibitions, but since they're temporary, we also wanted to create, as I say, a digital archive on our website. And that's when the question came up, how do we translate this to digital, and also that meets our requirements? But what are those requirements? First of all, open science. As a university library, we find open science very important and we advocate for it. So in this project as well, we found it very important that we encoded it in a fully open format. But we also had requirements for the look of it. We wanted to recreate the physical look by having the flexible grid. We wanted to have the displays, and especially for the displays with various objects. because that really shows the curator's hand in an exhibition. And we also wanted to keep the captions that are tied to the images and objects, since they provide extra information. And luckily we realized that all of that could be done with IIIF. So we could encode the entire exhibition as a IIIF manifest and use behavior properties to customize the layout. We could use IIIF canvases with multiple painting annotations, which also can be cropped. And then for the annotations, we could use web-based annotations that target the canvas. Of course, now there's a whole ecosystem available, but when we started this project in 2018, no such thing was in place yet. And luckily in Digirati, we found a partner who's not only an expert in the standards, but also shared our view to create an open tool for, but also with the community. And then onto the examples. I will play a video here where you can see one of our exhibitions on our website. And if it plays. Yes, there it goes. You can see that we kept the blocks with the various elements. At the bottom you see an index that scrolls with it that shows you where you are in the exhibition. And each of the blocks has its own dimensions, and you can add a caption to the right, to the left, or even at the bottom if you want to. And what we also found important is that the exhibitions were not only linear. Of course, when you scroll through it, it's very linear, but you are also able to explore more on your own, which I will show in the next video. If that plays. There it goes. So when you open up one of the blocks, you get this more in-depth view where you can click on the images, but also the annotations. And you also see that the annotation is highlighted, so you know where you are in the exhibition. And of course, you also see the text that you can also see in the larger overview. So just an overview, these are the different canvas types that you can use. Just like physical, we have the text, we have a single image, but we also have the mixed media canvas that we found very important, and we were also able to embed videos in these. And then next I will show another example, because of course we use this ourselves, but we also noticed that our colleagues, but also researchers and teachers also have an interest in creating exhibitions. And here a video of a student assistant will play that made an exhibition on a generative AI competition that was held on campus. And while you see that we have the same structure and the same possibilities, it does get its own look and feel. And here again you see if you click a block, it opens up and you can click on the various things and look at what you find important. And because we saw this interest, we decided that we would also like to organize a workshop. So earlier this year in Delft, we organized a workshop where in only an afternoon we got people familiar with the tool. Some people even explored IIIF content for the first time. And even in such little space, they were already able to create little exhibitions, as you can see the two examples on the side here. And then Paul will tell you more about the tools.
Thank you, Daphne. Hopefully that's working. Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to provide. Is that now better? Okay. Thank you. So I'll provide an overview of the tools and the processes in a moment. But I just want to mention, because obviously I think part of our presentation is about reflecting that this has been a long journey of almost 10 years working on aspects of these tools. And the original work and concepts actually started in 2017 with the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, and then the team at TU Delft joined in shortly after. And the aim was really to try and curate IIIF manifests in support of exhibition and presentation on their websites. And that ecosystem of tools has kind of iteratively developed alongside both the IIIF specification but also, I guess, as front-end development frameworks have improved and changed over the last number of years. So this year, as Daphne's highlighted, the focus has been on taking some of the work that we've done quite a long time ago and enhancing it to make it more usable, approachable, and also generic, so that other people could get involved and make it more widely adopted. And I'm going to talk you through some of the tools and changes now. So what I'll do is I will play this video. And I don't know where it's going. Sorry, Glenn, I don't know what's happening here. It's, so there should be a video there. Ah, okay. No. Don't know. But it's on the screen now, so I'm not sure. If you go back to the PowerPoint. No, see, it is actually on the screen.
Yeah, I don't think it will play because I don't have access to it. Well,
No, yeah, okay.
do you want to?
Is it? It's not playing, is it?
No. It's not.
I don't know what happened. Okay. How do I give you access?
So it's in your request. And you find it on here as well.
Does that see me? Okay. Apologies. Thank you. Okay, so what I've done here is I have opened the IIIF manifest that Daphne was demonstrating earlier, and this is the manifest editor tool that you see. Now, the manifest editor is a visual editing tool, so there's no JSON involved. You don't need to access or edit any JSON. Here you can see some of the manifest metadata that you can interact with and update. So I've clicked the canvases list here, so this displays all of the canvases within this particular manifest. And this is the first canvas within the manifest itself. So you can see it's a simple single image on the canvas, but in this case there are a number of annotations. There's an annotation page with a series of annotations added to it. So this one is highlighting a particular region on the canvas itself. So you can build and create your manifest within the standard manifest editor tool. So here's some of the other content that's within it. So this is a video. And in the left-hand side, you can create and add more content, reorder it, etc. And then you can also then preview and view how that manifest will be displayed in many of the IIIF viewers that are available. So part of the work that we've done most recently was looking at enhancing the exhibition workbench. So obviously when curating exhibitions, a lot of the time and effort is spent on getting the layout right. So in this view, it's a very similar UI. The manifest information is still presented in the same way. But you'll notice that on the left-hand side, in the exhibition grid, what we present is a preview of the exhibition, so that as you're working on your content, you can interact with that and you can preview more clearly how the content and the choices that you're making about the layout and behavior will be displayed. So for example, if I reorder some of the canvases within the exhibition, you can see the impact that that's going to have. And this obviously can be configured for your own standard look and layout and so on, so that it's more representative of how you want to present your exhibition. So in this example, I'm opening the layout tab for this particular image, and you can see you can adjust the width and height of how the image is presented, and maybe change the orientation, for example, or aspect ratio. And you can see clearly, obviously, the impact of making those changes. With this particular canvas, again, as Daphne mentioned, some of the exhibits obviously have captions perhaps, so you want to present that information alongside the image. So in this example, that's being presented on the right-hand side, but equally you might want to change the order of that, for example. And on this particular canvas, I think there's about 7 or 8 images painted on. And what we have is a concept called tour steps, and those tour steps allow you to create a way of routing people through the content in the canvas. So in this instance, each of these images has got a tour step, and you can add maybe a heading, some content about the image itself. You might also add additional images. It really just depends on the exhibit itself. And then you can reorder that. You might want to change it and have it work in a particular way. So that kind of gives you an idea of the exhibition focused tools that are available with the manifest editor. So what I'm going to do now is just preview that. So this is the same kind of scrolling website view that you saw earlier in Daphne's examples. And obviously this can be configured with a specific layout or design approach that you want it to take. And here in this example, I can navigate to the tour step that I've just updated in that example. And you can see how the different content choices in terms of the layout are presented in this particular exhibition view. There is also a standalone or slideshow exhibition version. So it presents the same content, albeit it does it in a slightly different way. It can be set to play so that it just automatically works through the content based on the steps that you've configured it with. So that might be useful for an embed, for example, or perhaps as a bigger exhibition on your site. So that's just a very quick summary of some of the tools and the things that are available to kind of help get you up and running with some of those exhibitions. And I'm going to hand back to Daphne in a second when I figure out how to get this back up again. Yeah, and that one.
Yes. So since we've been working on this project for a while, we also learned some lessons along the way, and we wanted to share 3 of them with you. So first of all, encouraging engagement. You really need to focus on the people and get them to use the tools. You need to help them along, and you could do that by providing workshops, demos, but also supporting content, because otherwise it can seem quite daunting for someone who is not familiar with IIIF. The second, the usability versus the customizability. We noticed that there's quite a fine line between those two. On one hand, you really want to have as many possibilities as you can think of, but on the other hand, you also want a good and working user interface that's easy to navigate. So we really need to keep in mind that we need to balance those. And then last of all, the IIIF implementation. We noticed that not all implementations are equal, to say, which also creates challenges for use, but also definitely when you're developing tools.
And yeah, just to kind of wrap things up, so just in terms of next steps, so we are currently enhancing documentation, so there's a website with some supporting examples, but we're also looking at some additional use cases, and hopefully some of those use cases will inform how more elements of the exhibition viewer can be customized further. The manifest editor, so the manifest editor continues to be updated, so there are some additional features which are about to be implemented to do with creating ranges and table of contents and other bulk editing tools. And obviously all of that complements the kind of manifest creation and curation. And then finally, we're planning an online workshop in the early autumn to kind of take people through these tools again and hopefully give them the opportunity to take and use them themselves. And that's it. There is a link to the website if anybody's interested in taking a look at some further examples. Thank you very much.
Okay, up next is Hennie Brugman, and he is presenting the importance of web annotations for IIIF practical applications.
Hi. I'll start with introducing myself, or better, a little bit the context of where I work. I work at the ICT department of the Humanities cluster in Amsterdam. I lead a team of 7 people. My team works especially with enriched text collections of different nature. And more we are working on all kinds of scenarios where annotations play an important role. My complete department is about 35 people, so it's a substantial ICT department. The Humanities cluster is about history, literary studies, Dutch language and culture, and social history. And we work a lot, by the nature of our research, we work a lot with GLAM institutions in the Netherlands. And we also, as technicians, we participate in national and European infrastructure projects. So what we try to build as a team is, we try to be as generic as possible, reusable by making things configurable, and we stick to standards. For this talk, relevant standards are IIIF, web annotations, linked data, not a surprise. Our philosophy is a bit put as much intelligence in the back ends, and that this keeps your front ends small and cheap, and you can recycle them quickly. So we try to provide access to functional APIs, to highly functional APIs. So I won't ask you to look at the details of this, but this is the software stack that we built concerning our enriched collections. On the bottom left, there's standard IIIF infrastructure, IIIF services. And what we added is on the right part, we added a service that is IIIF, is a bit like the IIIF image API in the sense that we can use URLs to extract segments of text from documents. And we also built, to store and manage annotations, we built our own annotation service, which I will be talking about later a bit more. And on top is GUI access, and there's also API access. So, about annotations and our annotation scenarios. What we typically annotate is digital objects of basic media types. So images, audio visual. We are gradually including map data. And this is all discussed and subject of this conference. This is nicely handled by IIIF. We also want to annotate text, and I think there's an omission. For our purposes, there's an omission. We'd like to see text as a primary media type better included in IIIF, so that you can also annotate texts like you can now annotate images. we take a kind of a maximal approach to using annotations, in the sense that that we take these enriched documents, we take them apart, and we strip them down to just text or just something of a basic media type, and we try to represent as much as possible in the form of annotations on these basic media types. So we end up with a lot of annotations in this way. Another principle is that we use standoff annotation. So annotations are separate, clearly separate from the objects that we annotate, and we want to have multiple layers of annotations, with the idea that it's extendable, that people can add annotations, go on adding annotations. And the standard of choice for our annotations is the W3C web annotation standard. I'll go through a couple of our projects just to illustrate what we do with them. This is a detailed view from the Goedgevonden project, which is 700,000 resolutions of the Dutch States General, so the Parliament of the Netherlands in the 17th and 18th century. And this is the way we present it. So on the left there's an embedded Mirador viewer with a highlight. What you see is basically, to introduce, is a web annotation that is of the type resolution, just so we represent resolutions as a web annotation. On the left, you see an image, and you see the targets of this annotation highlighted in the corresponding images. So the yellow box is an image target associated with this resolution annotation. In the middle part, you see text. This text is from our text servers, and it is retrieved by just slicing the part of a resolution out of the text of the full book, which contains about a year of text. So this is a slice of text. And on top of it, there are annotations represented. These annotations are annotations on the text. And on the right, there's metadata of this resolution. And there's also annotations of other types that overlap with the resolution text. So we use these overlapping layers to retrieve just a slice of annotations for this specific object. The same software stack applied to another project, Globalized project, which is a large project also based on scans, I think 5 million, 7 million scans or so, from the Dutch National Archive. And this is a viewer that's just there to provide access to transcriptions, automatically generated transcriptions, page by page. We don't have the document boundaries, but because of the model that we use, so we present now each page as, okay, how do I explain quickly? So a document is, because we don't know the document boundaries, we just take the complete box from the archive. We start with that as a kind of document. Once we know the real document boundaries, we can point at them with an annotation. So we can add a layer of annotations just indicating the document boundaries. Yet another example, again with the same software stack. This is a digital scholarly edition. It's correspondence of a Venetian diplomat, sort of the first ambassador in The Hague from Venice. This is manually transcribed. The source was Word and spreadsheets. But still, we use exactly the same services data model and the tools to display it. What you see here is a range of other annotations. At the top you see, we can have different types of texts that we point at with annotations, like appendices and secretarial notes. There are footnotes in the text, which is another form of annotations. Yeah. And we are currently working on a project of correspondence of Dutch artists, so Isaac Israels, and also Van Gogh and Mondrian. We do that together with the Van Gogh Museum and the RKD in the Netherlands. And you see here a better representation of the footnotes, but you also see different parallel text panels. In this case, this text panel shows a translation. The right panel shows a translation of the text on the left. Completely different scenario, annotation scenario that we're also working with. So use part of our software infrastructure, namely this annotation repository that we have, to exchange annotations of audiovisual material from one existing tool to another existing tool. For example, one tool could export annotations to the other tool to make corrections of the annotations, for example. We did this successfully. And a pilot that we are starting is with the Amsterdam Time Machine. We want to test this for the Amsterdam Time Machine, but also for the Network Digital Heritage in the Netherlands, because they want to find out in how far these types of annotation scenarios suit their needs properly. What we expect is that we will receive quite diverse annotation information from different sources, like georeferencing annotations or text recognition derived from text recognition on scans, or image classification in some way. So, and we have a couple of challenges there. So we want, of course, we want them to search, we want to compare them. So we expect that we have to do harmonization, mapping, agree on vocabularies, that type of stuff. So we want to find out how complex this will be. Point is that we want to be able to show all annotations that apply to some object from different sources. And it's an opportunity to work on groupware type of things. So having groups of people working together. So, quick comparison. So we have, over the last years, we have gathered a lot of annotations. So for the projects, some of the projects that I mentioned, some numbers. So it's in the millions, could easily be in the tens or hundreds of millions if we take everything, like at the line level or so, but we don't do that. And it's of different annotation types. So especially on the bottom, it's really many types. That leads me to the semantics. So these are web annotations, but we allow projects or users to mix in their own semantics. So in principle, the projects or the users decide what the metadata will be, what the semantics will be that they use, or what types of annotations they are. So we mix that in the web annotations. So in Goed Gevonden, for example, we can point at scans, we can point at pages, text regions that are columns. It's more physically scan-oriented types of annotations. But we also have project-specific semantic annotations, like for Goed Gevonden we have session days, resolutions are taken within these session days. And for the globalized project, up to now we only have 2. Expect to have a lot more. Suriano, it adds, for example, secretarial notes, appendices, footnotes, but also we can point at cipher script. There's also a specific annotation type. For the digital scholarly editions, they are based on TEI, and what we do is we derive the semantics from the elements and the attributes of the TEI document. So we just take all elements and attributes and translate them to annotation types. So zoom a bit out to annotation scenarios in general. What I think is needed to get annotation scenarios working from the ground is three things. It's clients that you use to create and visualize, search, etc. Annotations. But it's also important that we have collection services Collection providers should, for these annotation scenarios, should clearly publish the coordinates that you can use to annotate. And IIIF does this for many media types in the form of canvases, which provide a coordinate system that you can refer to. And I already mentioned we want the same for textual objects. We implemented the service, but it would be nice if this was covered by IIIF, in a more standardized way by IIIF. Of course, you need access to the resources, the resource content itself. Persistency is something that should be provided by the collection providers. It's important for annotation to work and to be sustainable. And if I look at collection providers in our surroundings, I often hear that they want annotation on their collections to start up and going on, but if you ask if they want to have these annotations, they don't have the facilities to take them, or they don't want them, or they don't consider it part of their task as an archive, for example. So there's a gap, so where to leave annotations. So this leads me to the final point. You need annotation services. So you need a place to store, manage, search, browse, etc. sets of annotations. And a few statements about these sets of annotations. We consider them full-fledged data sets, so it's not secondary in any way. Annotations are important data, so it should be treated as such. We think that annotations, you should be able to autonomously create and maintain these annotations, so don't need a collection provider that holds the material that you are annotating. You should be able to do this yourself. And ownership of these annotations, that is initially at least, it is also the group or person that creates these annotations, so not the collection provider. You could transfer ownership, but it's not necessary. So the collection provider should not be initially responsible for annotation sets that people create. So we have our own implementation of an annotation repository. We started by making a full implementation of the W3C web annotation protocol, and we added functionality. So we added creation, read, update, delete functions for annotation containers. We did a lot of, we worked on search, so globally in your repository, but also per annotation container. Special function that we use a lot for our text annotations is that we query for annotations that overlap with some segment of text, so overlapping targets is very handy. Maybe this could also be extended to overlapping image segments, or this is already available, I don't know. We worked on authentication and authorization. Batch upload is very practical in our situations where we have to deal with lots and lots of annotations. We provided read-only API access, which allows us to switch off the modification functions and thereby provide access to the world for these APIs. So people can just use the things that I showed the user interface for. You can also consult, you can also use that at the API level. And we added URLs for custom queries, and we did that because we want to be able to embed a query in a manifest, so you can associate annotations with a canvas by a service call. And so, for example, you can query for all annotations of specific types for a given scan. So we can use this repository in the background to dynamically insert relevant annotations in the canvas. So there's also Python and Java client libraries available to make it easier to embed usage in your own programs. Yeah, and this is already in production. We used it for all the projects that I discussed. We are aware that this is a tech thing, so using an API. We want to make it easier for a wider group of people, so we started working on a dashboard that is providing management functions and gives people overviews and interactive search functionality for the annotation containers that you have. And to conclude, my final slide, this is a bit the vision that we are after. So we have a model in mind where different groups of people each take responsibility of publication of layers of information stacked on top of each other. So to make it a bit more concrete, for this Goed Gevonden project, the National Archive is the provider of the images. And they should stay there, they are responsible for the publication, maintenance, etc., persistence. We, as the Humanities cluster, did this Goed Gevonden project. So what we do is we add text by applying HTR and doing all kinds of stuff with the text and creating annotations and linked data. This is all referring to the coordinates, the image coordinates that the National Archive provides to us. But we are after another step, and that's that humanities scholars can repeat this process, so they can in turn not only refer to the images at National Archive, but also to each element up to the level of individual characters or pixels or whatever, to add again their own annotations. So, and they take responsibility for their own annotations. And our hope is that this, especially this last step, will inspire people to deal in new ways, collaborate in new ways around collections that are published.